right, so what are the two most crucial items to know when you're buying vacant land that has a body of water, lake, stream, river, the back of it, side, or front? Number one, soil boring test. That will allow you to determine whether or not that soil can bear the weight of the structure that you're going to be putting on that you're going to be building on that land. And number two, wetland setbacks. So wetland setbacks, there's setbacks determined by the building department, right? So let's say you have a 35-foot setback in the front, you have a 35-foot setback in the back. If there's a wetland setback, that could supersede that building department setback. So that's number two. So to cover number one soil boring test, they come out to your land with basically a huge screwdriver, a huge drill bit. And that goes down into your land. You pick a corner in the front and you pick a corner in the back. You drill down to about 15 to 20 feet to determine what the soil looks like all the way down, right? And sometimes you'll hit the water table. So what the engineer is looking at, they're looking at to determine if you have good soil to build on, right? And if you're building something that has a walkout basement or a basement in general, you're gonna say you have a basement that you're gonna build at a 10-foot level. If you're doing that, you gotta figure you're going 10 feet down, right? And then you also have another 42 inches that you're going down for the footers. So you have about 14 feet, right, to go all the way down. You want to make sure there's solid ground there. So 14 feet down. Soil boring company will usually drill to 15 to 20 feet. So when they do that, they'll be able to tell, can you put a house with a basement that is 10 feet high? Yes or no? Or is the water table high, right? If you want to be at least 1 to 2 feet from the water table. If you're a little bit closer than that, you could have issues, right? You may, if you're close to the water table or if you're sitting right on that water table, you may need to do dewatering while you're building the structure. So, but worse, this is much worse if the soil is bad, if it's clay-like, right? If it's not the type of soil you want that you need to bear the weight of the house, then you may need to install something like a helical pier or wood piles. And those are tens of thousands of dollars to install. So a soil boring normally in Michigan, in my area, is around $2,500 to $4,000 to $5,000 depending on who you go with. So on average in the $3,000 range. If you don't do that and you go and you buy the land and you start excavating and you realize that soil is clay-like, is not going to bear the weight of the building, and you have to put helical piers in the ground, now you're talking tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, I've seen it where they're 40, 50 grand, right? And more. So that's very important to understand that where your building envelope is going to be, that the soil is strong enough to bear the weight of the building. So number two is, as I said, wetland setbacks. In the state of Michigan, it's regulated by EGLE, Environmental, Great Lakes, and Energy. So they regulate the setbacks. And the setbacks for wetlands is 25 feet. So if you're around water, there may be a wetland setback, a regulated wetland setback. And there's maps out there on EGLE. There's an EGLE map, but it's not the most accurate thing. So what you would need to do to determine if there are going to be any regulated setbacks is do a delineation. Have a wetland planner, an approved wetland planner for the state of Michigan go on site and either do a brief walkthrough of the site or do a full report, delineation report of that land to determine if there are any wetlands that you will be required to abide by the wetland setback. So this is extremely important because, like I said before, if you have, let's say you have a 35-foot setback on the back of the lot, wetland setbacks are 25 feet. So let's say that wetland is determined by the wetland planner that it actually is at, I don't know, 25 feet in from your lot line, right? From your lot line, your back of your lot line, you have a rear setback of 35 feet, but that wetland starts at 25 feet, right? So now you have to start it at that before you can build a structure. So 25 feet within from the back of your lot, and then you add another 25 feet because of the wetland setback. So really, yes, the city says 35 feet from the rear, but really with the wetland, you're at 50 feet setback from the rear because of that required wetland setback. Now, you can do variances, but there's a process to that, permitting and taking it to the board, taking it to the Eagle, all of those things. So it's not a guarantee that they will approve a variance, right? So number one, soil boring test to ensure that ground is strong enough to bear the weight of the structure. And then number two, wetland setbacks. Make sure you're able to build within the building envelope, even if you have a setback from the city. That does not mean that is the correct setback, because that wetland could actually be closer and cause you to have actually a lesser building envelope. So if you enjoy this content, follow X Home Builds. We'll have more new construction tips step by step. We're actually pouring the footers this upcoming Monday for our 2 ranch homes we are building. So follow X Home Builds. Until next time.